essence? I know it's a broad stroke brush.
Well,
But
it's like you can ask yourself a couple of questions. What are the most important things in your life? What are your goals? What is it that you want? What makes you happy? Now, if all these questions, if you answer them and it pertains to somebody else, well, if my wife would just be a little bit nicer to me,
right.
if my kids would just behave, if my husband would just do this, if this person would just do that, that's a codependent trait because most people don't rely on other people to find that joy that they're looking for.
Right.
They learn to get it on their own. A lot of people as little kids learn that their joy doesn't come from them. It comes from what other people can give them.
Right.
And it starts a pattern.
And there's two sides to this codependent behavior. The person you've described, which, you know, is a facilitator. I don't know what to even call it.
Yeah.
But then there's an enabler that you kind of become part of this codependent process and buy into it and become, you know, a necessary tool for someone to be codependent.
That is correct, Nick. And it happens in the dysfunctional family where there's one person who has the power.
Right.
And that's the person who calls the shots. And don't always think of the father because that's not the case.
No, yeah.
It can be the mom. It can be one of the sons. It can be one of the daughters.
Yeah.
But it's the person that really is the one calling the shots. And the people in the family enable that person to a certain degree for that person to be able to get what he or she
Right.
wants. And it starts a pattern where I want what I want when I want it.
Yeah.
And I'm always going to get it.
Yeah.
So they learn how to manipulate. They learn how to push buttons.
Yeah.
They learn how to put mom against dad, dad against mom. They learn how to lie.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these becomes dysfunctional. And every single member in the family starts to suffer because of this.
Right. And affects their good judgment, you know, especially children as they grow older and what is normal,
Exactly.
quote unquote. I think a lot of people would say, well, that's not me, or, you know, that's not my family. So I think it's a good idea if we, instead of describing a dysfunctional or codependent family, let's describe for our viewers what a healthy family relationship looks like in today's society.
Well, it's a group of people that come together and they're aligned. Let's say there's 5 people and they all have a relationship based on trust, respect. They honor each other's feelings. They might not agree. For example, we're here and I might say something and you might not agree on it, but you respect my point
Right.
of view. And you might say something I don't agree on it, but I'll respect yours. So we're not going to leave here mad at each other.
No.
Because we respect each other's
Right.
point of views. And those are the kind of things that happen. There's also boundaries, but healthy boundaries.
Yes.
No, we're not going to do this now because this is kind of what we do at this time. And that person honors that and understands that instead of whining and complaining, no, I want to do this now. And it's not always the kids. It's funny. You can have a wife that also wants what she wants when she wants it.
Right.
And well, honey, weren't we going to go here tomorrow with the kids? Well, I changed my mind. I want to do this. So it's honoring the feelings of other people. I always say it's like, how can we put the needs of others before ours? And it's funny because if you do that, other people would put your needs before theirs.
Right.
And all of a sudden, the family, there's a very fine balance where everyone is thriving. It's the opposite of an unhealthy codependent family.
Well, and then let's, in turn, right on the heels of that, describe what that would look like in contrast to what we just
Right.
talked about.
Well, it's chaos. It's really a
I love
disaster.
that. I don't love that word.
Yeah.
But it's a great description. Yeah.
The funny thing is people don't even know. They've been in it for so long.
Absolutely.
They think this is the norm.
Right.
This is kind of what we do. But somebody that's coming in from the outside, and I've had that. I've been to people's houses, and I'm like, oh my Lord.
Yeah.
What is going on here? And obviously you can't say anything because if you do,
Right.
you'll say you're crazy.
Yeah.
You're absolutely nuts. You don't know what you're talking about.
It is their normal.
We have a normal
Yes.
family, but you can see it's not. And everything is out of whack. There's no parameters of any kind. You don't know what time the kids go to sleep, what time they don't, what time they do homework, what time they don't do homework. If somebody has some issues with addiction, that person will think it's their job and their responsibility to help them. And how will they help them? Giving them money. For what? To buy more drugs.
Yeah.
But they're really not buying drugs. They're just going to have a drink or two. And they kind of already know intuitively that they're doing that. I need to help them with their rent this month because he lost his job again for the 22nd time.
Right.
And why did that person lose their job? Because they were using. So it's like you can't love your spouse or your child to death. I always tell people, don't love them to death.
Yeah.
At one point, you have to put a boundary and say, enough is enough. I can't help them this way. And a lot of times, parents, the hardest thing, Nick, for a parent to do is to step aside. Let go and let God.
Yeah.
And when they do that, a lot of times they let go, but they leave claw marks.
Right.
In the process.
That's great, yeah.
And sometimes they let go and they let God, but immediately they take it back.
Absolutely.
So these are some of the dynamics in a dysfunctional family.
And you've brought it up a couple times, the word boundaries. And in my experience, the longer you let this dynamic, let's say within a family, go on, the older you become, when you finally wake up and say, wait, this isn't normal, and you need to establish boundaries, in my experience, that is even more difficult as an adult, let's say, child now, to say no, because it's interpreted the wrong way. You're an ungrateful, child. Why would you, there's ripple effects, but it's worth it to establish boundaries regardless of what point you are in life. Am I correct?
It is, and sometimes I see clients that they talk to me about some trauma they had in their early childhood, and they want to maybe discuss it with their family members, specifically mom and dad, but they say they're set on their ways, they're not going to change.
Right.
There's nothing we can do. And this person has to carry that around for the rest of their lives because there were never no healthy boundaries. It's almost like we don't talk about this. What's in the family stays in the family. It's don't do what I say, do what I do, but then they don't do what they do.
Right.
So it's, a paradox here. So you're telling me to do this, but you're not doing it.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, make sure that you always respect what we're telling you. No matter what it is, you have to agree with us.
Right.
It can be something crazy. For example, a father's a doctor, and he wants his son to be a doctor too, and the son wants to go to California and be an actor.
Yeah.
And no, you're going to do this, and you're going to do this, and being an actor is not easy. You know that. But being a doctor is not easy either.
No.
So it's like those parameters. How can we understand that you are not me and I am not you?
Right.
But a lot of times when time passes, it's very difficult to get to a point where anyone in the family wants to even tackle that.
Right.
Because they've been that way for so long.
Right. And I know too, I've experienced and I've observed people, those close to me, that, a lot of times once you get married, you marry, your wonderful wife, and that's the first kind of glimpse you go that I involved my parents.